Close your eyes now, and let your mind drift back, far back, across the centuries to a sea of sand. A vast, silent, and timeless expanse where the sun reigns supreme and the wind is the only permanent resident. This is the western desert of Egypt, a place of profound emptiness and enduring mystery. Tonight, we will not focus on grand pyramids or golden pharaohs, but on a silence, a disappearance. The story of 50,000 souls who vanished into that sea of sand, swallowed whole by a desert that gives up its secrets reluctantly, if at all. It is a tale not of dramatic battle, but of quiet, inexorable absorption into the landscape. A historical puzzle that has baffled scholars and adventurers for 2,500 years. So find a comfortable position, breathe deeply, and let us wander into the heat haze of history in search of an army that was there one moment and gone the next. Imagine yourself not as a historian, but as a young soldier in this vast force. Your name is Darius. You are not Persian by birth, but a conscript from a conquered land, perhaps Lydia or Ionia, now marching under the banner of King Cambyses II, the mighty son of the great Cyrus. Your world has narrowed to a few simple, repetitive sensations. The feeling of the gritty desert dust, fine as milled flour, coating your skin, finding its way into your mouth, your eyes, the folds of your tunic. The weight of your spear on your shoulder, its shaft smooth and familiar from months of travel. The rhythmic, shuffling sound of 50,000 sandaled feet moving across the sand and rock, a sound like a vast, slow heartbeat. The sun is your constant companion, a white-hot coin in a bleached blue sky. It dictates the rhythm of your days. The march begins in the relative cool of the early morning, the air still holding a memory of the night's chill. As the sun climbs, the heat becomes a physical pressure. Your linen headscarf is soaked with sweat, the moisture evaporating almost as soon as it appears. You walk in a kind of waking daze, your eyes fixed on the back of the man in front of you, the world reduced to the patch of ground you must cover next. The only breaks are for water, precious, warm water from skins that are never quite full enough. You dream of the shade of an olive tree, of the sound of a running stream, memories that feel like they belong to another person entirely. Your destination is the Siwa Oasis, a place that has taken on a mythical quality in the army's chatter. It is the home of the famous oracle of Ammonius, a god the Greeks would call Zeus. The king is angry. He has sent messengers to the oracle, seeking legitimacy for his rule over Egypt, and the priests of Ammonius have declined. They have refused his offerings, snubbed his authority. Cambyses is not a man who accepts refusal. The army's purpose is not conquest, but correction. A show of overwhelming force to remind a remote temple of the power of the Persian crown. But as the days stretch into weeks, the mission begins to feel increasingly abstract, disconnected from the immediate reality of the march. The landscape around you is empty and unforgiving. The dunes give way to rocky plateaus, then to great fields of limestone that shimmer in the heat. You see mirages, tempting pools of blue water that retreat as you advance. At night, the temperature plummets. You huddle with your unit around a small, dung fuel fire, the flames casting dancing shadows on the faces of your companions. The sky is a breathtaking canopy of cold, sharp stars, a view so immense it makes you feel incredibly small. Conversations are hushed. The desert at night is profoundly silent, a silence that seems to absorb sound and thought alike. There is a growing, unspoken tension. The scouts seem uneasy. The local guides, men from the Nile Valley, argue quietly with the Persian officers, pointing at the featureless horizon with concern. They speak of the desert's mood, of the camp scene, the hot, violent wind that can rise without warning. But their warnings are dismissed. The army is too large, too powerful to be concerned with the weather. It continues its steady, relentless march deeper into the emptiness, a great serpent slowly disappearing into the sands. The line between the army and the desert begins to blur. The dust of the march becomes part of you. The vast, indifferent landscape seems to swallow the sounds of the soldiers, the creak of supply carts, the snore of the horses. The mission to Siwa feels a world away, replaced by the immediate, daily struggle against the heat, the thirst, the distance. You are no longer an army conquering a desert, but merely a group of men moving through it, hoping to pass through unnoticed. But the desert, as you will learn, is not a place one simply passes through. It is a place that endures. And on a day like any other, the wind begins to pick up. The change begins not with a roar, but with a whisper. A subtle shift in the quality of the light. The sun, that constant white-hot coin, begins to soften, its edges blurring as if viewed through a piece of ancient glass. The horizon, once a sharp, unwavering line where the bleached blue sky met the pale gold of the sand, starts to dissolve. It smudges, browns, and melts away. The air, which has been still and heavy with heat, begins to stir. It is not yet a wind, but a sigh, a long, slow exhalation from the desert itself. You, the soldier Darius, notice it first in the silence. The rhythmic heartbeat of 50,000 shuffling feet begins to falter. Men slow their pace, their heads turning. The quiet conversations, the occasional bark of an officer's order, these sounds are swallowed by a new one, a low, humming thrum that seems to come from everywhere at once. It is the sound of countless billions of sand grains, agitated, stirring from their ancient rest. The sigh becomes a breeze, and the breeze quickly grows insistent. It tugs at your headscarf, whips fine tendrils of dust around your ankles. The scouts halt their horses, the animals skittish, their ears flat against their skulls. The local guides you saw arguing days before now stand utterly still, their faces etched with a dread that needs no translation. They look not at the officers, but at the southern horizon. And then you see it. A wall. A rolling, churning, sepia-colored wall that climbs from the desert floor to the heavens themselves. The Cambyses is not coming. It is here. What happens next loses the order of battle and takes on the chaotic, surreal quality of a dream. The world dissolves into a roaring, particulate brown. The sun is extinguished. The man marching in front of you vanishes within 3 paces. The air is thick with a stinging, suffocating grit. You tie your headscarf over your nose and mouth, but the sand finds its way in, grinding between your teeth, coating your throat. You can hear nothing but the demonic howl of the wind, a sound so overwhelming it feels less like something you hear and more like a pressure inside your skull. There is no panic, because panic requires orientation. There is only a profound, primal disorientation. The great Persian army, the most powerful military force on earth, is rendered instantly, utterly helpless. It is not defeated, it is unmade. There is no enemy to fight, no formation to hold. There is only the storm. Men crouch where they stand, turning their backs to the wind, wrapping their arms over their heads, becoming nothing more than small, huddled shapes in an infinite, screaming brownness. The supply carts are abandoned. The horses, mad with terror, bolt into the maelstrom and are gone. You huddle behind your shield, a tiny island in a raging sea of sand. Time loses all meaning. It could be minutes, it could be hours. The storm does not rage so much as it persists, an endless, suffocating presence. The sand begins to pile around you, a dry, relentless tide. The struggle is no longer about the mission, or the king, or the oracle. It is a simple, biological fight for the next breath, a fight against the gentle, accumulating weight that threatens to bury you where you kneel. The desert is not attacking. It is simply settling. And in its settling, it is claiming everything in its path. When the wind finally begins to die, it does not stop so much as it exhausts itself. The roar diminishes to a moan, then back to a sigh, and finally to an eerie, absolute silence. The sand, suspended in the air for so long, begins to drift down like a fine, silent snow. The world slowly, painfully reemerges. But it is not the world you knew. The landscape has been remade. Dunes have shifted. Landmarks have been erased. The army is gone. Not destroyed, not routed, but erased. You stand up, your limbs stiff, your body buried to the waist in fresh sand. You are alone in a newly sculpted desert under a returning sun. You call out, and your voice is a small, pathetic thing against the immense, indifferent silence. There is no answer. There are only the dunes, smooth and pristine, holding their secrets close. In the days and weeks that followed, the silence left by the storm was replaced by another kind of quiet, the silence of absence. King Cambyses, in his palace in Memphis, would have received no news. There was no messenger to bring word of a defeat, because there had been no battle. There was only nothing. The most logical assumption, in an age without satellites or radios, was that the army had been ambushed and destroyed by hostile tribes, its remains scavenged and scattered. The official histories, written later, would likely record it as such, a military loss. But the truth was far stranger, far more unsettling. The desert had not scattered the army, it had preserved it, hidden it away in a vast, sandy vault. For over 2.5 millennia, the fate of the Lost Army of Cambyses has been one of history's most enduring puzzles. It is a blank space on the map, a question mark written in the sand. The story passed from history into legend, and from legend into myth, a tale told to suggest the arrogance of kings and the ultimate power of nature. The modern search for the army is a story in itself, a slow, methodical dance between hope and the harsh realities of the desert. Imagine an archaeologist not as a swashbuckling adventurer, but as a patient, sun-withered scholar. Their tools are not whips and pistols, but magnetometers, ground-penetrating radar, and a stubborn, quiet optimism. Their field is the Great Sand Sea, an area larger than many countries, a place of such extreme isolation and beauty that it feels like another planet. The theories of where the army might lie are numerous. Some believe the soldiers, disoriented by the storm, wandered off their intended route and perished of thirst in the deep desert, their bodies and equipment slowly buried over centuries. Others suggest they may have found a temporary refuge in one of the many small, hidden depressions in the desert, only to be trapped there. The most tantalizing theory involves an ancient, dried-up riverbed, a long-lost caravan route that the army might have been following. If a sandstorm of that magnitude were to hit a confined space like a valley or a wadi, the accumulation would have been catastrophic and instantaneous. Over the years, there have been flashes of excitement, moments that promised a breakthrough. In the 1990s, a team led by geologist Tom Brown thought they had found evidence, Persian daggers and arrowheads, but the findings were later disputed. More recently, 2 Italian archaeologists, Angelo and Alfredo Castiglione, claimed to have found the remains, pointing to metal fragments and potsherds emerging from a rocky area. Yet, the academic community remains cautious, demanding irrefutable proof. The desert is a place of mirages, both visual and intellectual. It offers just enough to keep the dream alive, but never quite enough to provide a final answer. The challenge is immense. The desert does not give up its secrets easily. The sands are constantly shifting, revealing one thing one year only to bury it again the next. An entire army, after so long, would not be a neat collection of skeletons and spears laid out for discovery. It would be a scattered, disarticulated jumble, metal objects corroded, organic materials long since returned to dust, all hidden beneath meters of sand. To find it would require not just luck, but a perfect, almost miraculous alignment of conditions, a rare windstorm to uncover the site, and a team to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time to see it before it vanishes once more. The search continues, a slow, quiet quest driven by a simple, compelling human desire to solve a mystery, to find an answer to a question asked 2,500 years ago. It is a reminder that history is not always known to us. Some stories remain half-told, their endings waiting patiently beneath the earth, or in this case, beneath the endless, whispering sands. While the soldiers of the Lost Army met their silent, sandy fate, life in the heart of the Persian Empire continued its steady, unperturbed rhythm. In the magnificent capital of Persepolis, the court of King Cambyses II would not have come to a standstill. The business of empire is vast and complex, and the disappearance of a single military expedition, however large, would have been a tragedy, a mystery, but likely not a catastrophe that threatened the throne. The machinery of state would have ground on. Imagine the contrasting scenes. In the desert, the last, buried remnants of the army are settling into their eternal rest, the sand filling the spaces between spear shafts and breastplates, the wind smoothing over the dunes that now serve as their tomb. Meanwhile, in the royal palaces, scribes meticulously recorded tax revenues from Babylon on clay tablets. Cooks in vast kitchens prepared elaborate feasts for court officials. Diplomats from distant lands were received in audience halls whose walls were adorned with reliefs of immortal soldiers, forever frozen in perfect, orderly procession. The contrast could not be more stark, the chaos and anonymity of the desert against the rigid, documented order of the empire. The elite Persian officers who led the expedition were men of status and wealth, likely from powerful families. Their vanishing would have left ripples, empty seats at dinner tables, unresolved inheritances, grieving families. But for the vast majority of the army, the conscripts like our soldier Darius, their absence may have been felt only in their small, distant villages. They were the anonymous cogs in the imperial machine, and the machine, though it had lost some of its parts, would have found others. New levies would be raised from the provinces to fill the ranks. The memory of the lost men would fade, replaced by the immediate needs of the present. This is the nature of history, often told through the lens of kings and conquests, but built upon the countless, quiet lives of ordinary people. The story of the Lost Army is not ultimately about Cambyses or his wounded pride. It is about the 50,000 individual stories that were abruptly and utterly erased. The young farmer who left his olive grove, never to return. The craftsman who laid down his tools to pick up a spear. The father who kissed his children goodbye, promising to return with stories of the great oracle. Their fate stands in silent contrast to the enduring, visible monuments of history. We can still walk through the gates of Persepolis today. We can read the inscriptions of the kings. But the Lost Army has left no monument, no grand inscription. Their memorial is the desert itself, the immense, empty silence that swallowed them whole. They are a reminder that for all our power and ambition, we are transient figures in a landscape that has seen countless generations come and go. The desert was ancient long before the first Persian soldier was born, and it remains, unchanged, long after the last echo of their march faded from the air. And so we are left with the silence and the sand. The story of the Lost Army of Cambyses may never be fully solved. The desert is a perfect custodian, giving up only fragments, whispers, and tantalizing clues that keep the mystery alive. Perhaps it is better that way. Some stories are defined not by their endings, but by their enduring questions. As you lie in the comfort and safety of your own home, consider the immense, quiet history of the world. The countless stories that have been lost to time, the lives lived and ended without a trace. The Lost Army is just one of those stories, a reminder of the gentle, inexorable passage of time that blankets everything, much like the desert sands. So let the image of that vast, empty desert fill your mind. Let the howl of the wind fade into a distant whisper, and then into silence. The soldiers are at rest. The scholars will continue their patient search. But for you, now, there is only peace. There is only the gentle weight of your blankets, the steady rhythm of your breath, and the deep, welcoming quiet of the night. The mysteries of the past can wait until tomorrow. For now, just let go and drift into your own deep and untroubled sleep. Good night.